Hi guys, in this lecture we'll be talking about CSS selectors. CSS selectors are important tools in CSS. Without CSS selectors, you cannot style your HTML. So in this lecture you will become an expert in CSS selectors. So let's get started. So what are CSS selectors? CSS selectors are CSS tools used to select HTML elements like h1, paragraph or other HTML elements for styling, as you cannot style any element without selecting that element. So you need something called CSS selectors. There are different types of CSS selectors that we will learn in next part. Now, what are the types of CSS selectors? There are three different types of CSS selectors. First, default selector. Second, class selector, and third, ID selector. I'll now tell you about all of these selectors in VS Code. Now let's understand CSS selectors inside VS Code. Firstly, we'll create index.html file, index.html, and another file, styles.css. I have told you how to link CSS and HTML files earlier. So firstly, I'll change the title to CSS Selectors. Now I link the CSS file. Okay. Now I'll create a h1 tag, hello world, another tags, let's say paragraph, okay, yes, and another tag, say h2 tag. Right. Now if we have to select all of three selectors, we have three different methods. First is default selector, by which we will select the h1, and then we'll use class selector for the paragraph class. So this is another attribute in HTML named class. So we'll give it class equals, give it any class. I'll say paragraph. It's on you what name you want to give. And for the h3 tag, we'll use ID attribute. This is another HTML attribute. ID, let's say subheading. Okay. Now let's differentiate between class and ID. Class is a specific selector for a HTML element which can be reused for different types of elements, but ID should be unique. It can be used for only one HTML element. Thus, you can create different HTML elements with the same class, but you cannot create different HTML elements with the same ID. Now I'll save the file, and inside the styles.css, now firstly I'll select the h1 tag. For that, I'll directly write h1 and then these curly braces. Now this is the example of a default selector. As we are using default selector, it will not only target this h1 but also all the other h1s we'll use in the file. So let's style it. Let's say we'll give it color equals blue. Now if we run the file, open Chrome, you can see our h1 turned into blue. Now the next thing, I'll show you what happens if I use another h1 tag. Okay, here I'll write second heading. If we, you can see this also turned blue. This is the flaw between the default selector. You can also take it as a flaw or also take it as a benefit, because if you want different styling, different elements of same kind applied with same style, then it's beneficial. But if you want to give different styles to different elements, you cannot use this default selector. Now let's demonstrate class selector. For selecting a class, we use dot and then the class name. So our class name is paragraph. So I'll write paragraph. Now here I'll give it color, okay, green. Font size, I'll not give font size. I'll just give color green. Now if we run the file again, you can see our paragraph turned green. Now if we create another paragraph tag, okay, no, not copy, but without the class p, here I'll write another paragraph, and you run the file, you'll see the style does not apply to this because we are using a class selector. And if we give it the same class paragraph, the style will be applied. This can also be used between different types of elements. Let's give h3, okay, h3, give it a class paragraph. You can see our style, okay, okay, I haven't written here h3, I'll write h3 and run the file. You can see it also applied to the h3. So if you are using a class, the style will apply to every element using that class. So now use ID select. For ID we use hashtag. ID name is subheading. Hashtag subheading. Now if we give it a color red and save the file, you can see our style will be applied to that h2. Same as class, it will not apply to every h2 but only this h2. You cannot use ID for different types of elements. So these were our basic types of selector, but there are two more types of selectors. One is star selector. I don't know what it is called, but yeah, star selector, what I see. This star selector, the design within this selector will apply to whole HTML document. Like if we say background color red, and you will see it applied to all of the file. So I'll remove it now. And another type of selector that is very useful in list elements, if we use, let's say, unordered list and list elements. Here I'll write list 1, list 2. Okay. Now if we go inside the styles.css and if we want to select these list elements in the UL, we can write it UL, then we can write list. This will target the list element inside the UL. Even if it was a paragraph tag and you wrote like UL paragraph, it will only target the paragraph tag inside the UL. So if we style this, let's say color, should I say black? No, let's say white or purple, okay. And if we run the file, you can see it applied to the list elements. Same will happen if we write the paragraph tag here. Let's say list paragraph. And we write here paragraph inside P. Instead of list we wrote P. And another thing, doesn't only work with default selector, you can also use classes here. So this was the today's lecture on CSS selectors. If you found this video helpful, give this video a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and do not forget to subscribe the channel. So let's meet in the next one.